Let's look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Day 2 of the NFL Draft is officially over, and the Detroit Lions are halfway through the second NFL Draft under the Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell regime. So far, I think this draft is going very well for the Detroit Lions, but they have 3 more picks at the very least on day 3 to improve this roster even further. And right now we are going to talk about all the guys that made it to day 3, all the guys that have fallen into the 4th round or below, some of the guys that could be on the radar of the Detroit Lions, not necessarily grading them, not necessarily putting them in order of value or order of need or even the order I think they should be selected in, but just giving you the names to keep an eye on for the Detroit Lions radar. And then later today we are going to take these prospects and put them in an order, put them in a draft rank, and put them in a drafting list to say, which players might be more valuable, what players should the Lions have a higher draft grade on, and what players maybe the Lions are going to be targeting with their remaining 3 draft picks, and of course where they fit and how they fit with the Detroit Lions scheme. But with that being said, and with all of that out of the way, let's get into the guys that fell to day 3 of the NFL Draft and guys that may end up being on the Detroit Lions draft boards. Now, first things first, we got to talk about quarterback, because I think quarterback has been the surprise of the draft, with Malik Willis not going till the 3rd round, with Desmond Ridder not going till 72, and with the Lions and with the NFL draft being 3 rounds in and only 4 quarterbacks have been selected, 3 of whom were in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. This draft class is a very different one, and one of the top quarterbacks has actually fallen all the way to day 3, being, of course, Sam Howell, the quarterback from North Carolina. Sam Howell, at some points in his collegiate career, was talked about as a potential number 1 overall pick, and I believe was the 34th graded player on Pro Football Focus's boards, and was almost unanimously looked at as a day 2 prospect at the very worst. But here we are in real life after 2 days of the NFL Draft, after 105 selections, and Sam Howell is still on the board. A pretty good armed quarterback, pretty accurate, run a really efficient system at North Carolina, worked with the Detroit Lions at the Senior Bowl for an entire week down in Mobile. The connection is there, the need is there for backup and developmental quarterback. A lot of guys compare him to Baker Mayfield, and honestly, Baker Mayfield might not ever be able to carry a team to a Super Bowl, but if you're getting Baker Mayfield on a rookie contract in the 4th round, if you're getting a 5th round contract on Baker Mayfield for 4 years, even for 3 years after Jared Goff until you find that next guy, best case scenario, he works out, he develops, and I think he's going to be better than Baker Mayfield. I think he's got a better arm. I think he's more accurate. I think he's got better mobility, scrambling, and playmaking abilities than Baker Mayfield, and I think he could genuinely be the quarterback of the future for the Lions if he ends up falling all the way to the 5th round at 177. Other quarterbacks that have fallen include Carson Strong, the quarterback from Nevada, arguably the best arm in this class, might go undrafted, might fall all the way out of the draft entirely, but will certainly be available at some point to some lucky team on day 3 of the NFL Draft. And Bailey Zapp, the guy that set all the NCAA records a season ago at Western Kentucky, is also still on the board. Bailey Zapp is somebody that a lot of Lions fans were saying, okay, maybe top of the 4th round, if we get a pick in that range, we're going to take Bailey Zapp to be the backup quarterback. Bailey Zapp at this point has 2 far better quarterbacks above him, and he, again, like some of these other quarterbacks that maybe aren't talented enough to go in the top end of this draft, they might fall all the way out of this draft because the talent just isn't there positionally. Now, moving on to a big need that I think should be addressed on day 3, that, of course, is linebacker. You're talking about Brandon Smith, linebacker from Penn State, arguably the most athletic linebacker in this entire class. I mean, he is statistically and based off of his measurements, the most athletic linebacker ever in the history of the NFL draft. He's more athletic than Micah Parsons was coming out. He's more athletic than Channing Tindall this year. He's more athletic than Bobby Wagner and Luke Kuechly when they were coming out. He is the freakiest athlete of freakish athletes that the linebacker position has maybe ever seen. 6'3", I mean, absolutely elite measurables, fantastic combine and pro day. He's going to get drafted somewhere just because of his raw talent and raw athleticism alone, and I think he could also be a top pick on tomorrow's big board if he even ends up falling all the way to 177. I think Nefe Sewell is also a big time contributor that can join the Detroit Lions on day 3. Good coverage linebacker, projected to go somewhere in the early 200s. And between now and those early 200s, the Detroit Lions hold 3 separate picks, right? They hold pick 177, 181, and 217 in this class, meaning they have 3 picks in realistic striking range of Nefe Sewell. I think DeMarco Jackson from Appalachian State is also a pretty realistic option. I think there are a couple other guys on the board as well that could become Detroit Lions and become either really good special teams players or fantastic role players in this year's defense. I think it's safety, although safety was addressed at the 97th overall pick with Kirby Joseph. I think the safety position is still relatively thin, right? I would feel a lot more comfortable adding one more player to this draft class, and I think I'd feel a lot more comfortable adding one more safety to this on top of a linebacker. And with that being the case, I think Verone McKinley and Sterling Weatherford are both really good options. If Verone McKinley had a great 40, is really good in coverage. He's got really good range, forced a lot of turnovers for the Ducks defense over the past couple of years of collegiate football. He is a coverage guy that I was talking about potentially on day 3 if the safety position hadn't been addressed yet. And then I also think Sterling Weatherford, a guy that was compared to Kyle Hamilton in this year's class, right? 6'4", big hitter, more of a box safety, but can absolutely cover over the top. He doesn't quite have the exact same range and the exact same speed as Kyle Hamilton, but he's got good ball skills, good length, good height. He measures very similarly to Kyle Hamilton, and if we couldn't pick up Kyle Hamilton, some people say Sterling Weatherford is the second best option for a player to fill in that role. At the very least, you're getting a great special teams player, and at the top end, maybe you're getting a player of Kyle Hamilton's caliber, right? Give the Detroit Lions a little bit of an opportunity to maybe make up for not taking Kyle Hamilton. And maybe one of the big reasons they didn't is because they have their eye on Sterling Weatherford in the 6th and 7th rounds of this NFL draft. I also think that Bubba Bolden and Smoke Monday are also big options here, right? Not necessarily the best coverage safeties, but now that we have, I'd say, one really good coverage safety in Kirby Joseph, right? One coverage specialist, as well as 2 other guys in Tracy Walker and Deshaun Elliott who can certainly cover as a deep fielding free safety and aren't going to be liabilities at that position. I think safety is pretty good. If you want to add another box safety, if you wanted to add, another, run and tackle guy, another run and hit player like maybe a Smoke Monday or a Bubba Bolden, I think that those are also players that could be on the Detroit Lions board. Worst case scenario, they're special teams aces. Best case scenario, they develop into a really good rotational safety, a really good rotational box that comes in due to fatigue or injury or COVID or whatever the case may be. And then going on to a couple of other names that maybe aren't the biggest positions of need, but would just simply be very good value at day 3 of the NFL draft. And if any of these players fall to 177, I think the opportunity and I think that the option to take them is definitely something that Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, and the Detroit Lions should 100% consider if these scenarios do come to fruition. Jamari Saylor, the tackle from Georgia, is one of the better tackles in this class. He was, I believe, a first-team All-SEC member and was just one of the big reasons why Georgia was able to hold off that Alabama defensive line, right? Was a huge contributor in the national championship run of the Georgia Bulldogs. If you want to add offensive line depth, you could do a lot worse than Jamari Saylor. Again, just big body, really good pass protector. If you need some depth at that position, if you feel like right behind Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, you're not super comfortable with Matt Nelson, I think that Jamari Saylor could be an option. Same thing goes with Rasheed Walker. I think Rasheed Walker is one of the best pure run blockers in this year's draft class. If you want him as that 6th offensive lineman, that first tight end to line up on the line of scrimmage, to open up your run game, do what Matt Nelson did a season ago, but just levels higher and levels tackles better at that point while potentially developing him into your left tackle or right tackle of the future. I think that that's also something that could be a really big possibility if either one of them fall to pick 177. I think that if Tariq Woolen ends up falling somewhere into the Detroit Lions lap, somebody that is just freakishly athletic, I mean, tested top tier 10.0 as an RAS score, I think he could be interesting, right? Cornerback, not really the biggest need, but at some point the athlete and the talent is just simply too much to pass up on. Tariq Woolen, looked at as a top 100 prospect in this year's class, just fell out of the top 100. I would expect to go very early on day 3, but if he continues that fall, we could see him in a Detroit Lions uniform rather than something else. And then same thing goes with Zion McCollum from Sam Houston. I think that, FCS guy, cornerback, wasn't really going on a run for very long. A lot of the top cornerbacks are gone. A lot of the teams have moved on to other bigger, better positions in the class, and they've left 2 top-tier athletes in the secondary in Tariq Woolen and Zion McCollum. Either one of them would be great Detroit Lions, being great athleticism, great special teams, and arguably a higher ceiling than anybody in the Detroit Lions secondary as of right now. But with all of that being said, that is life for you guys today. Those are the big names that I would keep an eye on. Those are the big names I would keep an eye on for the Detroit Lions going into tomorrow. Again, these are not necessarily in an order. These are not necessarily in a list or in a ranking, but later today we will have a ranking and we will have the best and the top players for each and every individual spots for the Detroit Lions. So with all that being said, and until later on today, that is life for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. What players would you target with the 177th, 181st, and 217th pick that the Lions currently possess? I'd be very curious to hear what direction you think the Detroit Lions should go to finish off this draft. But with all of that being said, that is life for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions!